Dabo Sweeney, Coach Sweeney's contract extension this morning too, and then any other conversations from the group. Incredibly excited about this place. I mean, it's obviously it's awesome. Very similar design and feel and amenities to the other premier areas that we have between the West Zone that's above us, the Yount South Club on the south side of the stadium, obviously our suites and other club areas. The success and the demand of this place, Masters Club, has really exceeded our expectations. It seats 640, and we've sold 600. IPTE has sold 633, so there's 7 seats left. There's some singles and some pairs if anybody's interested, but that has far exceeded even what we knew to be true as far as the demand for Clemson football, but let alone environments in premium areas like this. Certainly the ROI associated, the business case from a premium seating standpoint is understood, but the derivation from what this facility will do to help us pay for and add the other aspects to the project between the video board that we've talked about, and then even next summer with the phase for Lot 5 and the locker room and player areas down below. So this area, Masters Club, and the support and IPTE and the donors for it is certainly the fuel towards the balance of the $65 million investment here in football. So to be able to show it off, certainly for Saturday, let alone how we're going to activate this throughout the year, and just add it to our portfolio of investment within Memorial Stadium was by design, and it's great to experience it as is. So really excited to kick this off. Obviously, with that sales success, we're already starting to think about what's next at the stadium. Certainly I've talked about for next summer, Lot 5, Tiger Walk, locker room area, but we want to continue to invest in the fan experience as we talked on over there, and that means premium seating because of demand and the ROI to it. But we've even walked through, as we walked over here, our concourse, the South Concourse, and obviously the other 3 concourses, North Concourse and the upper decks, going to continue to invest in those areas that would help support, in effect, all 80,000 restrooms, concessions, those type of amenities that are really important. Everybody will be able to experience video board, etc. 640 will be in here and in our other areas, but want to make sure that we're balancing premium investment areas that help with the ROI and the business plan, so to speak, with investments that help the full fan experience. And so that's going to continue to be the next steps for Memorial Stadium next year and beyond. And this is a great testament to the demand in the Clemson family.
I have a question about
Yep.
we've seen the Tiger out here in Lot 5. What will Tiger Walk look like this year, and then what will it look like in future years?
Great. So this year, you're right. So we have it's a temporary statue on Alpha Perimeter Road, and so where we've added the bollards and the pavers, so the buses will actually pull off of Perimeter Road when they let off for Tiger Walk. So the team will be able to start Tiger Walk, and David, it'll effectively be similar to how it's been in years past, kind of walking down the middle of Lot 5, but purposely having the buses pull off of Perimeter Road that we think will help traffic flow. It's not going to solve the problems, but having the buses off of Perimeter Road as quickly as possible to allow Perimeter Road to reopen and have that traffic flow is purpose. So that's going to be different this year. The buses will pull off of Perimeter Road. And then the second part of your question, what does it look like next year? We're actually going to realign Tiger Walk, and Lot 5 will be totally repaved, retreed. We're actually going to have additional trees there compared to what's there currently, and relotted. And it's interesting, and we can kind of see it here, but from an architecture standpoint for campus, there's what's called an axis. And so if you go from Dalford Hills now in the College of Business through Tillman Hall and through the middle here of Death Valley and the Oculus, and then down through Lot 5 and through softball, and then even to the Penley Clubhouse, if you look at Google Maps, that's all aligned and linear. And that kind of speaks to, and again, from an architectural campus planning standpoint, that's an axis by which a lot of what campus is designed in and around, and certainly here through our athletic facilities. So when the Oculus was built in 2015, that was in concert with Tillman Hall and this axis through the valley. And so the continuation of that, David, through Lot 5 is really interesting. You can maybe only see that if you pull up Google Maps, but from a campus planning standpoint, it's an interesting nuance that's intentional.
Graham, can you talk briefly about the additions to the indoor facility and the football complex?
Yeah, so thanks Trevor, two big, important, separate projects. One's the 100 Yards of Wellness, which has been opened this fall semester for really fall camp. And it's really the combination of training rooms, so sports med and wellness recovery. We've added physical therapy staff members to our staff in-house, not just for football, but for all of our sports. And then really the recovery sports science aspect and some of the equipment with it. So the 100 Yards of Wellness was intended to really combine all of those aspects physically, let alone from a staff and how we work together down in Reeves in football. We're going to extend that concept and the support services really with some work in Jervy. That's the next big project that'll have some effect. That will have effect for all of our sports. So we're really starting with football with it, and then here in the next months and years ahead, we'll have some extension of that for all of our sports. So that's one project of it. The second is the CAB, Clemson Athletics Branding Institute, which is really a recognition from an NIL standpoint of how we support and give space and creative opportunities and rentable spaces for our student athletes to engage and really focus on NIL opportunities, which is obviously incredibly important for our student athletes here, let alone from how we create opportunities from a recruiting standpoint, et cetera. So those are the two big projects for Reeves. And we certainly later this fall are going to break ground on our women's sports expansion. We've talked about this a good amount, up by rowing for lacrosse and gymnastics and those women's sports as well. So that'll start this winter and really be under construction most of 2023.
Can you reiterate some of the features people will see on Saturday? I know you said it before, just now that you're mic'd up, can you kind of just reiterate what fans will experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So the new video board, which is 5x the size, lights, sound system, and so the theatrics of that, let alone Ring of Honor and the ribbons around it. So it's been a long time coming. The 10 years that the prior board was here served its useful life, and it served the Valley great. The interesting thing, while this isn't the biggest board by dimensions in the country, I think it's the 8th largest, but the proximity of the board to the field right above the hill, the proportionality of it, we think is the biggest in the country, so to speak, that you'll experience. And so that design and that experience for all 80,000, we're really, really excited about. And again, 3:30 Saturday, it'll be light like this, and so we'll experience it in some regard. Louisiana Tech game, week 3, 8 o'clock game, it'll be even different, and we feel like really excited about 25 seconds from an entry standpoint, and then some of the timeouts and fourth quarter videos and things like that throughout the game.
How important is the fan experience to you guys?
We are incredibly intentional about that, how we've actually reorganized some of our internal staffing from an administrative standpoint to align our operations and focus on marketing, in-game promotions, ultimately fan experience, and what that means like from a facility standpoint physically, let alone just the game flow and scripting. So we've taken steps internally to staff up and reorganize to have more intentionality around that, just because COVID certainly changed so much of us socially, and it gave opportunities to stay home, on the couch, stay away, and the resounding return of Clemson fans. We've renewed about 97% of our season tickets, and I talked earlier about the demand and the sale through here for the Masters Club. So we have an incredible experience, tailgating experience throughout the game day, and so the intentionality that we'll continue to invest from a fan experience standpoint is very much by design.
Brand, along those same lines, has there been any more discussion about allowing beer sales or alcohol sales?
There have not to this point, Matt. Yeah. I'll transition to just some comments on certainly the action from this morning with Coach Sweeney, and then again, I know there's probably a lot of other ground we can cover, and happy to dive into it. Just excited and humbled to be able to have the contractual agreement, which feels transactional, but there's so much more to what the action is this morning for Coach Sweeney's commitment to Clemson and us to him, his character, morals, ethics, how he leads Clemson football, and those 130 men on the current roster, let alone the former players, and his connectivity throughout Clemson football family is second to none. And we experience that, we feel it day to day, but I think actions like this today really just emphasize and further stitch together our support of him and how he leads that program in an incredibly changing environment that is college athletics, and the true north that he leads as a person, let alone as a coach and a leader for such a prominent program for Clemson University, let alone Clemson athletics, is a testament to this type of investment. Certainly, it was an effort for us to be proactive. The market's changed significantly over the past 9 months with a lot of coaching changes and coaching contracts, and so we called Coach. I called Coach and his representatives, not he to us. So that proactive, intentional investment and recognition of the changing market and prominence for us to continue to position him from a investment and a contractual standpoint was very intentional for me, specifically over these first 8 months of the job. And so the conversations, I know it's here, it's week 2, and it was just announced, but this was not a hurry up and get something done because of the market and the changing market recently. It's been an ongoing, really smooth dialogue over the spring and summer. Obviously the support of President Clements and our Board of Trustees today is their formal action and show of support for Coach Sweeney and for Clemson football. And that alignment that we talk about so much and have for the past decade here, this is a great example of that. And the support from President Clements and the board to show that to Coach Sweeney, and just us emphasizing our continued investment in football. And we know that the business aspect of that and the ROI that football creates for Clemson athletics, let alone the community and institutional support and lift that it brings, today is just a double down on that effort and that proactivity that we've shown Coach here over this spring and summer. And so excited to officially announce it. It's been embargoed a bit. We wanted to make sure the timing was right, and to have this public show of support to him, again, very intentional and a big day, a really exciting day for Clemson and for Coach Sweeney, and just that reciprocity of the agreement. So happy to certainly talk on any details therein. I know we've provided some of those, but just that bigger picture view of the commitment beyond just the dollars and cents was absolutely the guiding light on this one.
How important was it to get him, to make him one of the top 3 though, as far as per year salary?
Yeah, certainly the achievements. He's one of 2 coaches that have won multiple national championships. He's has the highest winning percentage of any active coach. So what he's achieved and accomplished certainly makes the market and quite frankly the negotiations really straightforward, if I'm being honest. And conversely, want to make sure we're investing and showing that support for Clemson for what's to come. And so the expectations that we're going to continue to invest in Coach Sweeney in all aspects of our football program, this is certainly an example of that. So it's the look back, Will, that he's earned and has positioned himself to be at the top of the market, but then also are a show of that commitment that we expect to continue to be there for Clemson football for years to come.
Did it help that you had Tony and Brent making a little bit north of $2 million each, that you kind of freed up some funds there? And then this isn't a great outlay of money. I mean, it's only going to be $1 million more this year, and 10 years from now, just $3 million more than the previous contract. So it's not like this great outlay of cash.
Yeah, I follow you, David, and have ultimate respect for the magnitude of this It's a $115 million contract. It's a lot of dollars. But to your point, is we've been committed to Coach Sweeney, and he's been ranked in the top 3 for the last handful of years. Certainly a changing landscape in financial planning within college athletics and for Clemson. And so really a lot of the rigor that we've had over the past couple of weeks has been on our stress testing and the fiduciary planning of this commitment, because while it's an extended commitment from what it has been, it's balances within all 21 sports that we have and how we look to invest appropriately and within market. And so you're right, the financial analysis, and you all know my background coming to Clemson as the chief financial officer initially, that rigor from our staff and Kevin White and team has been strong, and really that's where our board spent a lot of time. They recognize the market, absolutely recognize the shared commitment and fit with Coach Sweeney, want to make sure that this makes sense from a business standpoint for us, and so excited to stress that and be able to move forward with it.
Is there an Alabama buyout clause or provision there in case Nick Saban decides to retire and Dabo's alma mater comes calling?
There is, Trevor. That's not new though. So there's an augmentation, I guess is I think the word we use for an Alabama buyout in recognition of that. But like I said, that's been in effect for 3 or 4 years now. So that's not new. It's just reaffirmed. But I would tell you, I think how I look at that is Coach's commitment to Clemson. And if you were to look at the market for the buyouts, Coach's buyout to Clemson, even before any of the additive for Alabama specifically, is the highest of his market, of the top 10 markets. So that commitment that he has to Clemson sets the market. And again, it's dollars and cents, and that's important, but that shows also Coach's willingness and commitment to Clemson. So that's how I see any of those buyout dollars, because there's a lot of them around the country and in the market that aren't a whole lot, if any. And so even those dollars there from Coach is emblematic of his commitment to Clemson.
I guess you mentioned the timeline, and then you said it the last couple of weeks, but you also said back in the spring. So I guess when was the initial contact with him about when you want a new contract? Was that back in the spring, or when would you say that happened?
It was, John. Yeah, it was early in the spring, maybe even in the winter, just as I was getting settled, and certainly had conversations with President Clements and our board. But those contacts weren't to sit down and begin to negotiate. It was just a recognition of, hey, the market's changing. We want to be proactive with Coach, and let's just and had the dialogue. And so as the spring and summer transitioned and other contracts were approved at other places, we just wanted to make sure that we were aligned on recognizing the market, and then that allowed me to have conversations with our board and our leadership of a strategy for Clemson. And so really natural flow of the dialogue. And again, I called Coach, so to speak, his representatives. That was where the communication went, and that was very intentional for Clemson. And I think it frames a little bit of just the expectations from Coach is that this is really Clemson being proactive for him and not the other way around.
As the negotiations progressed with you and Dabo, did it get to the point where you purposely said, okay, I'm going to wait until the Kirby Smart and Nick Saban deals are done?
There's always strategy, Scott. There's always strategy, and so had some, stay in touch with colleagues, et cetera. So had some expectation or some assumptions that there was certainly movement within the market. And as Will was asking earlier, where Coach has achieved, it's a very small market. I remember back to working with Dan, where we've done, this is the fourth contract since I've been here over the past 10 years that we've done with Coach. And so the prior three, the market and the negotiations weren't as straightforward. Just because Coach was, we were having achievements, wanting to invest, market was moving, but what he's achieved and where our investment is for Clemson football in all aspects, it's a small group. And so did we intentionally wait till some of these? Not necessarily, but was very intentional about understanding that the market was still moving even past December, where there was a lot of coaching changes, and tried to make sure we were strategic about how we balanced all that together.
I think this question you might like this one, but the difference between Clemson over the past decade and other schools is that, the board of trustees, the president, the athletic director, the coaching staff have all had an incredible synergy. Do you feel like this shows that despite the fact that Dan Radakovich has moved on, President Clements is, how many ever years in now, but that synergy is still there and the commitment to winning? I
think, David, this there couldn't be a better example of that than this action today. And we talked about this, whether I was over 2020 and 21 from a COVID management standpoint. Certainly, I'm not naive that my transition from an in-house hire to here just speaks to the strength of that alignment and relationships and decision making. And I think moments like this are when it gets stressed and it gets flexed, and now you show that when it shows through. It's easy to talk about alignment when we're winning football games and winning national championships in soccer and ACC championships in a lot of our sports. So it's easy to talk about it when it's good, but not that this is bad, but when there are moments of heavy decisions, important commitments, that this shows that alignment. So it's the flex of when it's tough time, so to speak. Again, not saying that that's what this is, but when there are those seminal type moments, it's really when that alignment gets flexed and when it holds true, such as this example, it really further exemplifies that we know it to be true and are very intentional about that alignment.
Is this part of your, considering recent bumps for soccer coaches, baseball, is this part of your master strategy to do this across the board for all sports? In other words, keep Clemson at the top of the pay echelon for across the country?
You give me a lot of credit for this, all this strategy, Scott. But and talk a lot about expectations throughout all of our sports, and the expectations that we know to be true for winning championships, conference championships, national championships. The investment, sure, that starts with coaches, or that coaches are a component of it, but it means a lot of different things: facilities, resources, support throughout all of our sports. Absolutely, this is an example of it, and you ticked off some that we've run through here over the spring. And so, listen, we have to manage the business. We have 21 sports that all need investment and support, and we can't set the market in all of our sports, right? Not naive to that, but absolutely have vision and have strategy as we plot the areas for investment, and it starts with people. And so I'm absolutely apt, maybe more apt to focus and invest in people and then infrastructure and things that around it, I think, will come with that. Start with people, and so financial commitment to the right people is absolutely an example of this, and is absolutely strategy and vision from my chair.
As salaries continue to go up and more investing, just how do you feel about the ACC right now and where they are? What have kind of some of those conversations been like recently?
Yeah, certainly the changing landscape and therefore the finances of it, Matt, has never been more dynamic. We're incredibly fortunate to have President Clements for as well read and as connected as he is within the athletics space to help lead us and recognize that. And our board, again, is incredibly well read and gives time to understand it. The uncertainty of it is, as I said, never been more dynamic. My job is to always position Clemson best we can. Commissioner Phillips and how we are working within the ACC. It's been written about that there's some committees that are looking at just uneven revenue distribution, other revenue opportunities that the ACC is looking to add, TV negotiations, etc. So that's been well written about and very, very invested and spent a lot of bandwidth along with Jim, with President Clements, on that. And so how we balance what we can forecast the future to be from a revenue standpoint, certainly that guides where we can commit from an expense standpoint. But I've never been more convicted and convinced of where Clemson is positioned within the landscape, our ability and our support of IPTAY and our fans to continue to drive revenue to help make business decisions like this possible.
How hard is it to try to, I guess, balance that when there's some uncertainty there, but you're also, committing more and more?
Yeah, this is a 10-year outlay, and the landscape is, to have that length of horizon, it's tough. Gosh, you lose confidence, so to speak, in the projections the further you go out, of course. So, but that's where, again, commitment from our board, David, we've talked about the alignment that feel so convinced of the commitment that's going to continue to be there from Clemson for us to continue to invest in anticipation and with strategy that the finances and the business is going to continue to be there to support it.
You mentioned trying to do what's best for Clemson and the revenue gap between conferences. Is it Clemson's intention to try to stick around with the ACC long term, or is it possible that you guys join another conference, just long term speaking?
Yeah, again, focus, as you said, Davis. My job is to focus on Clemson and make sure we're as well positioned and well read for the long term. And so we'll continue to focus there. That being said, the work and the support within the ACC has been strong. Commissioner Phillips has led well, but incredibly transparent, and has everything's on the table, to quote Commissioner, about strategies. And so I've talked about this, I think, in the earlier in the winter when I transitioned roles. I'm very thoughtful. I try to be mindful of, being newer to this role still. And having the decorum and the relationships within our league as such, but also very much recognizing it's Clemson and the brand and the importance that we have within the league, and so how we lead, and I'm fortunate to be on some committees within the league that are by design, as is Jim, and so I think that balance of minding and looking out for Clemson, of course, and the other athletic directors in our league would absolutely, that's our charge. But also doing it in concert to help further and grow the ACC from a business positioning is that balance that we try to strike.
Graham, momentous news last Friday with the expansion of the playoffs. President Clements obviously on the board of managers, so he voted to pass that. Obviously, the 14 playoff has been very good to Clemson. Just your thoughts on the expansion as it relates to Clemson.
Yeah, you're right. We're fortunate that Jim is one of the votes and one of the voices, one of the stronger voices, of course, in that room. We're excited about it. We're excited about the opportunity to go to 12. To your point, Trevor, 4 has been great for Clemson. We've been 6 out of 7 years, 6 out of the 8 total. One of the things I really get excited about for the expanded, what the bracket looks like, and I know it may be 26 at the latest and maybe 25 or 24 as the commissioners start to dive into the logistics, is the opportunity that it could have here for the Valley. And as we know, that the 12 bracket, that top 4 get a bye, and that's obviously going to be our goal to buy ahead within the bracket. But seeds 5 through 8 get to potentially, again, in theory right now, or as discussed, get to host a game on campus. And so to have a game out here, if we're in that 5 to 8 range potentially, and what that can mean for our fan base, season ticket base, community, economic impact, that's a new thing that gets us all really excited, especially here at Clemson. And so there's a lot of pros and cons to expansion, no question. And we think about player safety and additional games and how we can enact more benefits to the student athletes and the players. So absolutely, that's going to be where a lot of the rubber meets the road on, hey, how's this going to work? So very mindful of that, and we've had a lot of discussions here on campus, Coach Sweeney, President Clemens, and then certainly through the league. But excited about where this could go, how the support and the platform that will continue to give the student athletes, and then ultimately how that'll help drive brand and local impact here at Clemson.
Is it possible that playoff expansion helps the ACC as far as just having a guaranteed spot in the playoff financially?
Yeah, with how it's currently construed is that, the top 6 conference champions, so it's not necessarily guaranteed for the ACC, but one would think that the ACC champion is going to be well positioned. And then, more at-large bids beyond that. So I think certainly that's a reaction from the ACC that this is going to just provide more opportunity for league. And I'm sure there's been a lot of analysis of, hey, the years past and what the scenarios would have been. But I think for as much as Clemson has carried the banner and certainly had a lot of playoff access, I think the rest of the league has the excitement around it as well.
Any more?
I guess, Graham, with the grant of rights obviously gets a lot of attention as it relates to the ACC. I'm just curious if you think, have you, the conference or Clemson, maybe with the help of legal counsel, looked into that and see if there's a way to get out of that or restructure that or however that might work?
We've certainly looked at it, just by way of our association with the ACC, not with that intent necessarily, Davis, but just to understand what the parameters are, and particularly the grant of rights being a stability strength of the ACC. There's a lot of really good value and opportunity with the grant of rights, and so that binds us. And there's a lot to be said for that. And I think it allows the ACC to operate from a position of strength related to membership affiliations and revenue opportunities or contract TV negotiations, et cetera. So again, we're making sure to always focus and position Clemson as best we can. That certainly means that we need to be well read on our contractual agreements, and the grant of rights is certainly a key part of that. But it's all with a focus of, hey, how does that give us opportunity within the ACC to strengthen the position?
What are some other possible revenue streams that you think could help you maybe close that gap between what the Big Ten and the SEC schools are getting? Yeah,
one of the things that we've really led with here, and we launched it in February, is Clemson Plus. And uniquely, we've talked about the business plan with that it's not a transactional monthly subscription. We've added it as a benefit to IPTAY members. And you can join today if you don't have Clemson Plus, but you need to join IPTAY. And we think the long game of growing IPTAY as a base and membership really helps financially, or really will help support the future financial positioning of Clemson. I answer that question, your question, Davis, which is more of a conference question about what we're doing at Clemson, because I think that the notion of that from a media storytelling, sponsorship, how we integrate sponsorship and revenue opportunities within that, I think from what we understand, that concept, this project, is something that the ACC is going to look at more in aggregate, and how do we continue to consolidate content, games, etc. from a conference standpoint, and how do we maybe sponsor and monetize that? So that's one example that at Clemson we're bullish on how we've led with this Clemson Plus product, and how now as we tick into football season, how we continue to push and promote that through IPTAY. I think that's one example of how the ACC is looking to consolidate rights and content and maybe monetize it that way.
I think when you look at the Big Ten getting $7 billion or whatever it was, media rights.
There's a B with a billion.
Yeah. And then poaching the Pac-12, the SEC, bringing in Texas and Oklahoma, they're going to have a big media deal. If I'm hearing you right, you're saying, yes, we're in the ACC, we support the ACC, we want to make this work, but your main focus is, I'm going to take care of Clemson first. Is that right? That would make the fans, I think, feel better about the way Clemson's positioned, but can you say that?
Yeah, you articulated it really well. And that's certainly my charge here at Clemson, and I take my cues from President Clemens and our board. And so we're always going to act in the best interest of Clemson, and that means being certainly, again, well-read throughout the landscape, but also certainly focusing and being a leader within the ACC to help drive revenue and positioning of our conference. So that's a great balance how you struck it.
Got time to take one more?
have you kind of assessed the athletic department as a whole, kind of coming out of the peak of the pandemic in terms of finances, what you got going on?
Listen, all about championships and winning on the field from the competitive lens, of course. And you know, we're an industry with a scoreboard, and so wins and losses matter. But beyond that, and I think where Clemson's different, always has been, and the fit and feel that I have for my role and how we further Clemson is how we do it. And again, I know we're wrapping up, and I'll maybe end where we began, specifically with Coach Sweeney, but this extends to the rest of our coaches and people. Is character, ethics, morals, certainly from a compliant manner, from rules and regulations. That even extends in NIL and how we're positioning and being aggressive from a name, image, and likeness standpoint for our student athletes, but doing it the right way and with integrity. So I think your point of want to win, you know, and have expectations on the field, court, gyms, etc., to win, and we're investing in resourcing as such with those expectations. But we need to continue to do it as Clemson is, not change keep Clemson, and that means winning, but that also means doing it the right way with integrity and morals and ethics. And Coach Sweeney is a shining example of that. But I think as we position the athletics department with people and priorities, that'll remain the guiding light.
Thank you guys very much. Thanks, Graham.
Thanks.